Hello, and welcome to the weekly podcast of the Community Praise Center, Alexandria, Seventh-day Adventist Church. We're glad you decided to join us today by downloading and listening to this week's featured message. We pray that you allow God to teach and inspire you while you listen. Delivering this week's message is Community Praise Center's Senior Pastor, Henry Wright.
In our first two sermons, deeper commitment, dealing with stewardship. In the first sermon, we identified that there is a problem. Problem is simple. Sin moved us from a world of no want to a world of great shortages. Sin did that. And so we identified the danger that because of that, in order to compensate for this lack that now is all around us, mankind is now driven to own, possess, covet, hoard, to feel safe. And this has therefore led mankind, in many cases, to love the stuff more than the stuff provider. In the second sermon, we learned that God gathered the children of Israel together and moved them from Egypt to the promised land with a new philosophy. Their philosophy was that of stewardship. The Canaanites believed in ownership and erected their own god to that ownership, the god called Baal. Baal was simply self-worship. It was the worship of owners, the oligarchy, the powerful. God wanted to move mankind through his people from the worship of owning to the worship of service and sharing. Today I'm going to focus on one text. How many? One text. Moon read it. Elder Moon read it. I want to spend time expositing that text because it identifies a problem. The problem with paying the bills. Paying the bills. There's not a person in this room right now who's an adult who does not have bills to pay. Mortgage, car note, whatever. Paying the bills is a monthly ritual. Can I get a witness? For some people it brings turning and unsettled stomach. Because you ain't got no money. And the bills are due. Now don't sit there like you haven't been there. You've been there. Some of us have told bold-faced lies on the phone. The bill collectors. Mama died last week. Broke my back. Lost my wallet. Everything was stolen from me. Trying to keep from that residue of not paying bills, which is to repossess. They'll come and get your stuff if you don't pay for it. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? You're getting quiet because you've been there. It's a bad feeling. Get up in the morning and the car is not there. It wasn't stolen. The bill collectors have the car. You owe them. You haven't paid them. They took the car back. Paying the bills. Let's pray. Father, speak to our hearts now. In Jesus' name, amen. I graduated from Oakwood College, now Oakwood University, in 1964, before most of the people in this room were born. I was hired into the ministry June 6, 1964. I had lived on a stipend for a year as I went to the seminary. And then in 1965, I was assigned to 4 churches in the Delta of Mississippi. And I became a full full-time salaried worker in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. September 1, 1965. My salary was around $48 a week. Had a master's degree, systematic theology. Now I'm in a position to pay the bills. I went to school before the time of SOGs and BOGs and student loans and all that stuff. It was just me and my parents. They borrowing, me working. I'd worked hard through school and left school. They owed me. When I left Oakwood, they owed me $250. My senior year, I had 3 jobs. I was a reader for Dr. Rogers, Statia's grandfather. Good in Hebrew and Greek. I graded all the Hebrew and Greek papers. I was the student body president. They paid me for that. And then I was the person who unlocked the administration room, the administration building. That was where all the classes were held every morning. And I mopped the entire gymnasium twice a month by myself. Started 10, mopped till 12, 12:30. And I left. They gave me money. My total check was just around $300 per month. I lived in a conference-owned parsonage, and that was $92 a month. And so the brethren subtracted that before they sent me the $300, so I was never behind in my rent. Always on time with the rent, George. Brethren received it before I received it. Now, for the seminary, I'd gotten help with my books and my car insurance and my different fees. But now, Pastor Henry Monroe Wright in Mississippi with 4 churches, it's all on me. Car note, gas, upkeep of the car, food, clothes, dry cleaning, haircut, all on me. I had 1 suit, 1 pair of dress shoes, drove a 1963 Corvair. Payments were $65 a month. Paying the bills. Basically, all of my possessions could be put in a big old blue footlocker. That was me. But now, for the first time, Richard John, listen to the pastor. You know I'm telling you this for a purpose. For the first time in my life, I had to begin to assess, what is money really for? And am I going to spend the next umpteen years just working to pay somebody else? I had to ask myself the question, Debbie, what's the purpose of money, and what will be my priorities with my money? Paying the bills. Jesus had a lot to say about money. He told parables about issues of money. Remember the parable of the man who found the field that had the treasure? Remember that parable? He sold everything he had, Esther, just to get that field. The parable of the man who had found the pearl of great price. Do you recall, Frank? He sold all that he had to get that pearl. There's the parable of the unjust steward. Remember the guy who called up his boss's creditors and said, look, you say you owe this? Well, say you owe this. He was a crook. But he was a finagler with money. And then you remember the rich man who had a crop so large he didn't have enough barns. You remember that? And he said, look, rather than thinking about, we're talking about understanding now the purpose and function of money, Seeley, instead of thinking about what he could do for somebody else with that money, he went and built more barns to store up his wheat. All of these parables and many more. In fact, if you study the parables of Jesus, Jesus had more parables about money than anything else. That's a fact. Somehow Jesus understood, hear the pastor, Jesus understood that money can be a festering disease in people's wallets. Number one, it gives a false sense of security. And number two, money will challenge who you really are. The FBI says if they never meet you, if they never see you, if they can just see your credit card statement or your bank statement, they can read that and they can describe you down to the color of your skin based on the way you spend your money. Money is more than money. Money is an expression of who we are. Money is a statement of priorities. Money is a description. How we spend money is a description of how we think. All of these parables that Jesus told had either one or two lessons. Either the parable was about priorities and owning, or Christ's parables about money or about the danger of owning. Either the priority or the danger of owning was the focus of the parables of Jesus. So I want to look deeply today at the words of Jesus to his disciples and the context of modern life. Not just modern life, but life on planet Earth as we draw near to the second coming of Christ, because the verses we're going to study were spoken by Jesus in his sermon about the second coming. Luke 21. You're going there with me. We're going to read just about the whole chapter together. Luke 21. Luke 21. I think sometimes we don't do this enough, what we're about to do, and I apologize to Jesus for that. Luke 21, starting in verse 5. We're all going to read together. Luke 21, verse 5. And those at home, join me, please. Join me, please. Luke 21, I use the King James Version. Verse 5. You ready? Let's read. And as some spake of the temple, I was adorned with goodly stones and gifts, he said. I need more people reading. As for these things which ye behold, the days will come in the which there shall not be left one stone upon another, that shall not be thrown down. Now he's now moving us, Reuben, toward a discussion. Jesus is preaching, and these verses are extremely well worded. Keep going. Verse 7. And they asked him, saying, Master, but when shall these things be, and what sign shall there be when these things shall come to pass? Matthew's sermon says, what shall be the sign of the coming of the end? The things that Jesus was saying, the disciples sensed, Charles, that Jesus was going beyond just what was going on now, but taking them toward the end of things. We're reading verse 8 together. And he said, Take heed that ye be not deceived. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ. And the time draweth near. Go ye not therefore after them. Now, verse 8 is letting us know that listen now, keep it in context. Because the last verse is the key verse, but we're getting the context. And he's saying that in this world, where you're trying to make ends meet, in the meantime, while you're doing that, there are going to be false Christs. See, trying to survive must take place in the context of a wacky world. See, it'd be all right, Herb, if all you had to do was just come up with enough money to take care of you and Station, John, and the one to come. But God said, no, Herb's also going to have to do that while other crazy stuff is going on around him. Are you listening to me? What kind of crazy stuff? Verse 9, we're reading, But when ye shall hear of what? Wars and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must first come to pass, but the end is not by and by. Verse 10, come on. Then said he unto them, Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. So you're up in the morning, going down the freeway, going around the beltway, trying to get to work, and you hear that the Egyptians are falling apart. You're trying to get to work. You know you got to get to work on time, but now you've got this distraction. A key nation, once strong, an ally of our country, is falling apart, and that may affect the Middle East. So the price of gas may go up. You buying gas every day. You see what I'm saying? while you're trying to survive, all this other stuff is distracting you. Do I have your attention? All right, the Bible does. If I don't, verse 11, read. And great earthquakes, oh my goodness, shall be in divers places, and famines, and pestilence, that's disease, and fearful sights. See, the Bible has a way of tossing in these phrases. Fearful sight. What is that? What is fearful sights? What is that? But the verse is pregnant with a whole lot of, you're trying to keep your mind, you're at work now, you got tasks to get done, and you hear that a tsunami is coming. But you got work to do. See what I'm saying? There's an earthquake, and maybe here in the D.C. area, you're at work. You got work to do, but now is my house all right? So while you're trying to pay the bills, all this commotion is around you. Let's keep reading. Let's keep reading. Verse 12. But before all these, oh my goodness, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up into the synagogues and into prisons, being brought before kings. Earthquakes, pestilence, famines, nations acting up, and now they're messing with me. And one thing you've noticed, there can be an earthquake, there can be a tsunami, there can be a storm. But at the end of the month, B, G, and E want their money. Come on, somebody. Don't tell them, short this month, why the tsunami? They don't want to hear about the tsunami. They want that check. I want y'all to listen to me today. I got some serious stuff to say. See, this bill paying thing can almost become like a dictator. Some of you have missed vacations this year because, why? You couldn't afford to take off. Well, verses 13 and 14 and 15 and 16 and 17, just enlarge on that. And then you get down to verses 22 to 24. It really talks about the destruction of Jerusalem because he's talking about two things at the same time. Now verse 25. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Verse 25. Let's read. We thought we had enough going on. Look at verse 25. Come on. And there shall be signs in the sun, in the moon, in the stars, upon the earth, distress of nations. Now they're already fighting in the other verse. They're fighting in the other verse. Now there's distress. We saw distress 2 or 3 years ago. The housing market just boom. There are folks sitting here along with me. You lost thousands, tens of thousands on your house. Went into the housing boom, up, right side up, came out upside down. Don't sit there pious, just say, help me, Lord. There are folks sitting here almost lost their house. Distress. That stuff is distressful. But distress or not, at the end of the month, they don't want to hear about your distress. You made an obligation. Have to pay the bills. And then, if you're a person who does not have personal discipline, you're even stretched out paying for stuff you really don't need. Please let your piety loose and say amen. Yeah, you didn't need that dress. You got a dress. But you liked that dress. And you went on and bought the dress, knowing you're going to be short at the end of the month. And then you pray, bringing the dress home you don't need. Lord, you pray. Help me, Jesus, to pay my rent. Well, you just spent your rent on that dress to walk in CPC looking good. Looking good now. Hey, where'd you get that, honey? I'm just trying to make this thing real, y'all. I got a sermon to preach, and I got a lot more to say. Yeah. So here we are with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. So we should not be surprised at verse 26. Read it with me. Come on. Men's what? Stuff will give you heart failure. Just flat out give you heart failure. Palpitations of the heart. Why? You ain't got no heart trouble. You got too many bills. There's nothing wrong with your heart. Nothing wrong with your brain. Nothing wrong with your heart. It's right here in the Bible. And why are their hearts failing? Look at the next phrase. Oh, I love the Bible. The hearts are failing because of all this stuff. But why are they failing? What? Look, come on. And for? I could reword it, and for looking for those envelopes coming at the end of the month. And the phone calls. It's the phone calls. Aren't you thankful for ID on the phone? You see it? I ain't answering that because I know I ain't got no money. Isn't that one? Isn't God good? He gave us poor scuffling folk ID on the phone. There they are. Sears and Roebuck. There they are. Bank of America. There they are. There they are. Master charge, overcharge, late charge. Yeah. There they are. Not answering that call. Thank God for phone ID. And really, it makes your life better because now you don't have to lie. You just don't answer the phone. I just want it to be real to you, folk. Paying the bills. So in the midst of all these last day changes, I'm not done. Verse 27 says, now here's the part, Palmer, that gets scary. While all this stuff we've mentioned is taking place, in the midst of this, what's going to happen in verse 27? Jesus is going to come. Now, Harold and Deborah Sanford, you're getting key now. Jesus is saying, the problem is, all this stuff can get you so distracted, you forgot why you came in the church anyhow. You came in the church to be saved, not to pay bills. Well, it's like in verse 29, Jesus says, I haven't said enough. Let's read. And he spake to them a parable. Behold the fig tree and all the trees. When they now shoot forth, ye see and know of your own selves that summer is nigh at hand. Verse 31. So likewise ye, when ye see all these things come to pass, know ye that what? So when you see these pressures increasing, you have to then try your best to get undistracted and keep in mind that your purpose in life is not to pay some bills, but to meet the bill payer. Because I done read my text. I done read my Bible. Jesus paid it all. All to him I owe. So this thing is real. Well, he's not done. Verse 32. Come on. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass away till all be fulfilled. Verse 33. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. Now you mean to tell me he's just now getting to his key text? He sure is. Here it is. Verse 34. Come on. And take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged. You wonder why that word's in the Bible? This makes you, God is so smart. Of all the words, overcharged. You ever been overcharged? You know you have. Lest your hearts be overcharged, finish it with surfeiting. And, now we got my key phrase coming up next. And let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. One of the reasons why I like Luke's version, Al Joyner, of the last day sermon more than Matthew, because Luke uses modern terms, like in verse 25. Let's go back up there. Distress of nations with perplexity, the seas roaring. And then verse 26, men's hearts failing them for fear. And then verse 34, of course, cares of this life. I like that. In particular, verse 34 lights up for me because it reveals an issue that is almost like the need for air. The issue in verse 34 that I want to highlight is universal to human society. Luke 21 starts off with the widow's mite, and then Christ's prediction of the temple's destruction. The disciples asked for signs, and Christ answered them with signs that took place. Then the focus on Jerusalem, verses 20 to 24, and then material not found in Matthew. We've read the waves roaring and so forth and so on, distress of nations, perplexity, seas roaring, hearts failure. Jesus comes, and then this word of warning, and then verse 34. Let's go back to that young pastor in Mississippi. So, I'm a full-time employee of the church now. A year after I got into ministry, I married. And the brethren raised my salary from $300 a month to $400 a month. I'm now rolling in money. But what is money for, Henry? What is money for, young pastor? Why do we get up and work? Do you realize, hey, do you realize that if there had never been sin, there would have never been a salary? See, you don't need a salary to buy food that grows everywhere all the time and in plenty. You don't need money if there's no mortgage. You don't need money if there's no transportation issues. You don't need money when there's no sickness, no death, no mortician to pay, no utility bills because there is no unpleasant temperatures, no weather, and no need for clothes because you're all wearing light suits. Jobs, bosses, salary, financial obligations are a direct result of people eating a piece of fruit that God said don't eat. And so as I took on life of marriage and responsibility, it sunk deep into me that working as God originally intended, just for the joy and sake of positive contribution to human existence, has now been tainted. We have to work now to get money, to pay the bills. And God never intended that people work for money. You need to get that. Working for money is a devil plan. I want that to sink in. Human beings were never to work for money. They were to work for joy. But when you have to work to get something, then that thing becomes very important. Hear the pastor. Maybe more important than it should be. Because now you weigh the worth of your work by the money it brings, and not by the contribution it makes. Listen to your pastor. So Jesus' words, take heed to yourself, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life, so that the day come upon you unawares. Living Bible, watch out. Don't let my sudden coming catch you unawares. Don't let me find you living in careless ease, carousing and drinking, occupied with the problems of this life like all the rest of the world. Amplified Bible, but take heed to yourselves and be on guard lest your hearts be overburdened and depressed, weighed down with giddiness and headache and nausea of self-indulgence, drunkenness and worldly worries and cares pertaining to this life, and lest that day come upon you suddenly like a trap or a noose. Message Bible, be on your guard. Don't let the sharp edge of your expectations get dulled by parties and drinking and shopping. There's several key concerns that Jesus expresses in this original language. The word overcharged is actually better translated burdened. The word for burden is bereostein. The root word is beros, which means to be so oppressed that you're heavy, weighed down, even sleepless. Now, by the way, one of the translations says The cares of this life, it says, the cares of life is puts caught up in the headaches that come from paying the bills. First, Jesus says, watch out for surfeiting. The original word for it is really dissipation, karapale, utter debauchery, senseless, wasteful lifestyle, doing what you want, when you want, and ignoring the possible consequences. Jesus says, don't be overcharged or burdened with such living. But that wouldn't apply to most people sitting in this room. The word drunkenness is the word matheo, which means just to drink too much. But it's deeper than that. When he says drunkenness, he's talking about people who, to get from under the pressures of life, get addicted to something. See, drunkenness is an addiction. He said, be careful, first of all, for just crazy life, but secondly, be careful about finding some way to deal with the pressures that you become addicted to drugs, addicted to liquor, addicted to tobacco, addicted to pornography, addicted. Why? You can't take it, so you find an outlet that's more destructive than the bills. But even in that, surfeiting, drunkenness, he's really not talking to the church. So he mentions a third danger, cares of life. The word for cares in the original is meramas, from merimna, which is that watch it, Doug. Merimna is to have a divided mind, to be preoccupied with something, to be anxious, or a free translation is to have headaches that come from obligations. See, Tanya, just in case the word surfeiting didn't get you, and the word drunkenness passed you by, Jesus said, I got one more that's going to hit all of you. Cares of this life. Maybe your life is resolute. You're not in debauchery. You're not living loose. Okay, that doesn't touch you. Maybe you're not addicted to anything but yourself, so that doesn't touch you. But some of you got that. But I got one more that affects everybody. Everybody, Jesus says in the last days, is going to be caught up with owning and buying and purchasing, and that's going to create an anxiety that keeps their mind off their salvation. They're more afraid of the bill collector than they're afraid of Judgment Day. Verse 34 was written to us, CPC. He finally mentioned something in that sermon that affects everybody in the last days. You may not be involved in surfeiting. You may not be involved in being hooked on something to avoid life's woes. But every grown up in this room is hooked up on trying to make ends meet. And bless your soul, sometimes they never do. So look at the things we get involved in. Some of us are still working on the Sabbath, trying to pay the bills. I just want to talk to you. I'm not in the entertainment business. I'm a preacher of righteousness. That's what I do for a living. Some of us are breaking God's law to have money to pay the bills. Some of us have occupations that are a little questionable, but we need to get a job to pay them bills. Some of us are sitting in this church week after week, month after month, year after year, haven't returned one dime of tithe. Paying the bills, but going to hell. And we return tithe, we don't know what church budget even is. And we forgot the text said tithe and offering. Offering to test, tithe to test your honesty, offering to test your generosity. But the man downtown, the bank, the mortgager, whoever, They own your soul. They own your wallet. They own your life. Some of us looking for work. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever gotten on your knees and said, Lord, bless me with a job that I might have funds to advance your cause? I dare you to change your prayer. Watch the job come. To want a new job so you can have a better house, a better car. That's an insult to heaven. He's going to burn the house. He don't need the car. You're going to fly everywhere. That doesn't impress him. Our priority, CPC, must change. Why? Why does God supply His church with money? He said, so we'll be different from the world. One of those texts says, not like the rest of the world. We'll be different. He wants a group of people who work not to adorn themselves, not to have, but a group of people who say, look, I want the work of God to be finished so that Jesus can come. So I want this job. Yes, I'll pay my mortgage. Yes, but I won't have such a fine house. I cannot give anything to ministry. I won't have such a big fine car. I can't afford to do anything when there's an emergency in the church. No, I'm going to live a life of one who knows that's all going to be taken away. I'm going to invest where moth and rust doth not corrupt. My job is not for me, it's for Him. We've lost that concept in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We've lost that concept in every church. So what God gets is what's left, the extra. Oh, yeah, Pastor, I'll try to squeeze out something extra for church budget, but, I got to, as soon as I get cover my bills, there's something left. You're going to get it, Pastor. And Jesus stands there and says, what did He just say? What was that? Let him wake up in the morning. Let Jesus wake up in the morning and say, hey, I got a lot of breath to give out, and when I've got done, if there's any left, you get some. We do that with a clear conscience. We expect God to understand. And Jesus, looking down through time, y'all move to the piano, Pastor's almost done, looking down through time, He said, I see it. The devil's not going to get them Adventists with drunkenness. We don't do that. Oh, we drink 7-Up. We don't do nothing like that. No, not us. No, sirree. No. Can't get us that way. We don't smoke. We don't do that. We're not in the club. We don't do that. Behind us. Gave it away. Loose living and all that. No. What we do is house and car and clothes and stuff. We do that well. And we good at that. Look out there! But when the call comes to do something, to invest in heaven, to invest in souls being saved, to invest in finishing the work. Folk, I don't know about you. I want to get out of here. I don't like living on planet Earth. Get me out of here. God supplies His church with people who have money and income so that we can, having done what we're supposed to do for BG&E, we have so handled our money, there's something to put into Africa, something to put into China, something to put into Alexandria, where people have needs. And we do so not complaining, not bragging. Neither. But because I know I don't live to pay the bills. My money means more to me than that. And so that young pastor, who's now almost 72 years old, has never missed 1 month of returning tithe to the Lord. He and his wife connive and pray together before God, put our money out there, And we return to the Lord not only a tithe, but an amount equal to a second tithe for the church, for the needs of people. Not boasting, but I decided a long time ago, them folk downtown ain't getting all my money while I make excuses to Jesus. I learned that. I learned that. I learned that. And I learned it well. And I can testify, my God can supply all my needs according to his riches and glory. End of the month, I ain't nervous. Ain't no mortgage payment coming in. I ain't got none. Ain't no car notes coming in. Ain't got them either. Got to deal with BG&E, them poor rascals. You know, they had me sign a sheet, where they can cut back on your electrical power in the summer when they feel like it. You sign one of them sheets. Has some kind of fancy name for it. All they're doing is just charging you and then cutting back at the same time. But you got to see, some of them you can't escape. They like rats. They like rats everywhere. Can't escape them. Washington Water, the water company, you got to pay them. You got to pay for water. Now, Rez, don't that get to you? Yes, he's nodding his head. Yeah. Pay for water. Can you, Adam and Eve would just roll over in their grave. Pay for water. And really, when you think about it, air conditioning, what are you paying for? Air! Now, folk, I don't know about you. I'm tired of this. Somebody, turn to somebody and say, now I'm tired of it. Go on and say it. Tired of it. Say it again. Get it out of your system. Tell somebody. Say it loud. Say it loud. I'm tired of this. Did you listen to this sermon? Did you understand what the pastor was saying? Folk, we were never intended, go ahead, Reg, by God. Making my appeal now. God never intended that his people work just to pay bills. Vicki, we were designed by God to be stewards so that the money we make, oh yeah, Alex, it takes care of the bills, but we so plan, we so live, we choose modestly so that we have something left to invest in the most important work on the planet, the work of saving souls. So Jesus said it. He said it loud to, hey, I like the way he said it. He said, do not put your money, where moth and rust doth corrupt. Invest in heaven. And I invite you to join your pastor today in a fresh commitment. Take a look at how stretched out you are. I'm serious, folks. I'm not just preaching this sermon for your entertainment. Take a look at where you are financially. Ask yourself, do your obligations represent God's priorities? Get serious about it. Fall on your knees. Make some courageous decisions. And let's move together as one body at CPC to be a church family that God can trust with much, because we know what to do with much. Come on, somebody.
Thank you for joining us for this week's message from Community Praise Center Alexandria, Seventh-day Adventist Church. If you have any questions about the message or would like to contact us with any prayer requests, please visit us at www.cpcsda.org and use the prayer request tool at the top of the page. We invite you to share this message with someone else and look forward to you joining us again next week. We pray that you experience the presence of God always with you.